Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So, you'll have seen in the B-roll, and you'll also have been paying attention in the stream this last week, and sorry I haven't uploaded for the last week, just been a bit burnt out, but I'm pushing back. So anyway, you'll have seen in the stream I was playing Reap Totems to try and see if that could possibly work. And I came to the conclusion of, no, it's just way too hard to scale. So I went, okay, well, what could we convert the totem build into as an alternative? And I came to, well, what's the skill that got buffed in this league? And hence we get to Fireball. And in fact, we're at level 26 Fireball, which is even better. So currently the way that the damage works in this, right now the tooltip's 153, unbuffed, 277, goes up to 302k. That's a lot of damage. Now, the way that at least I believe at this stage it works is it's per projectile, so per fireball, not per like totem damage itself, if you want to look at it like that. And so the tree that I'll put in the POB, which still has a little bit of working to do, I've got to get the dex component up and things like that. But I've got it working with double clusters. This is the area that I've got to work on next. I've got it to about 320,000 per projectile right now. So it does a lot of damage. Now, one of the obvious things that happened this league was in 3.17 was that Fireball got significantly buffed. And while it looks like Totems got nerfed, in mainly the Soul Mantle lost the +1 totem, they really didn't get nerfed. Not the way that we thought they did, at least. So, anyway, the mechanics of this build is, so you're getting about 536,000 DPS per fireball, right? So basically, you do 3 fireballs stock if you run Rain of Splinters with any totems. So you fire additional 2 projectiles, which means you have 3 projectiles. Then we're also running a Dying Sun, which gives us another 2 projectiles. So basically, that's 5 projectiles multiplied by the 536. So this is just some really rudimentary mathematics. So times 5. So you do about 2.6 mil per totem. Now, the caveat of that is fireballs fire out in like an arc, so they don't always all hit the same target at the same time. But we have 5 totems. So theoretically, we're doing 13.4 mil with this build, which would put it up there as one of the higher end builds for totems, at least from like a spell totem perspective. Is this real? Well, it's based on the positioning of when the fireballs fire out. The closer they are to the target, the better. The problem that I currently have is I need to find a solution where I can basically pick up point blank, because if I've got point blank, then I do even more damage. Now, potentially that's a corruption thing, but that's something that I'll have to have a look at. Currently with the gearing though, and we'll talk about that, it's pretty straightforward to gear this. It's the same self-flagellation build of any other totem build. So pretty standard. We're running a Viridi's Veil. We have 2 magic rings, because the way that Viridi's Veil works, and this drops off Maven, it's like a 1C or 3C item, is that if you've got magic rings, then damage of enemies hitting you is unlucky, so there's a good chance it won't hit you, and then you're also hexproof as well if your ring is in the right socket, and then yeah, if it's in the left socket, you take no damage from crit. So this is crit immune. This is got a sort of dodge mechanic here with the damage of hits is unlucky, as well as we're completely hexproof, which means that we can run the Soul Mantle, which basically inflicts a random hex when we have a totem die, which is basically, you'll see on the screen here. And so there's a bit of a mana issue, but nothing that's really noticeable, because if you pace the way you cast, you're good, all good. Now, the other side of this also is we're running a Coward's Legacy, which, you know, going back to like 2 leagues ago when everyone was playing, you know, totem builds, I can't remember the build, can't remember the skill that we had. It's that crazy ass skill I ended up running. It was so OP. You know, this league, not so much the case. Like, nobody's really playing totem builds because everybody thinks that they're nerfed, except for EA totems, that is. I should correct myself there. Now, that's not the case with this. These spell totems, pardon me, these spell totem builds are still crazy powerful. Actually, with this tree, I did test, you can get Ice Spear in here and do crazy amounts of damage. You can get Blazing Salvo in these totems with this current tree iteration, do crazy damage. you can put Freezing Pulse in these totems and do about the same amount. So, you know, 0.5 mil per pulse, multiplied by the number of totems. So you can do a fair bit of shit with this build. Now, the caveat is here, there's some survivability issues that I'm working on. The reason why I've went fire totems, though, is because I wanted to run Legacy of Fury, so I have basically permanent uptime with Scorch. And you'll have seen in the B-roll, just absolutely shits on T16 maps and bosses. I died once on Shaper. I haven't tried Cyrus yet. I'm not even going to waste my time with Maven because I suck at the fight even with my better characters. And yeah, across the board, like, this build is just strong. Like, with the only caveat being the survivability, and the way that I've gotten around that is to actually spec out of using Zealotry, which dropped my crit down, which I've managed to compensate for and get back up to 100% in the tree. And run Grace, which gives me about 8,000 to 9,000 evasion, which is, you know, like, I think it's like, how much evasion rating, 52% chance to evade attacks. And then we're also running Flesh and Stone, which blinds enemies in the area, and that decreases their ability to hit you. And then the Viridi's Veil. So the effective hit pool is only 16k, but the whole thing is it's 16k if they even hit you. And then we've obviously got Vitality and Clarity in this build too. And then we also use Transfiguration of Mind, and we also have some conversion with Divine Guidance of damage taken over to mana instead of life. Now, we're not running a Mind over Matter configuration on this because we're reserving Auras. And the reason why we're reserving Auras is you could run it with using the New Eternal Blessing and run one Aura, but you lose a lot of the survivability elements that this build has. This is somewhat of a suicide build, like you're just going to go in and just blast through content. I'm still scaling the damage and tweaking the survivability, so where it's at right now is not where it's going to be left at, but as it is right now, it's doing a shit ton of damage, and you can correct me in the description if I'm wrong. It's taking down Druid, absolutely rips through Drox and everything else, so it's pretty good. It does more damage than my RF build, just less survivability. So that being said, that's the basic overview of the mechanic, and then obviously for this build to work, you've got to run the self-flagellation jewel wherever I've got that seated currently. I don't even know where I've got my jewels in this build. Rain of Splinters, where did I put it? It's got to be here somewhere. Where are you, self-flagellation? There we go, self-flagellation. So obviously when we curse the self, and because we're curse immune, we curse ourself, has no effect, means you can run all immune maps. Also means that you get 17% damage for every single curse that you're inflicted with as well, or afflicted with. So not a bad deal. Anyway, let's get into the gearing, and I'll talk through how everything's built. Alright, so gearing perspective, the obvious is we're running Viridi's Veil, and the reason why is this is basically the totem helmet. So when you're running magic rings, what this basically does is it gives you reduced crit, or eliminates crit altogether, and also makes you hexproof, so then you can run self-flagellation and buff up your damage significantly as you cast your totems. Wands, literally target is cast speed with this build. It's going crazy amounts of cast speed because we can't run spell echo. Spell damage, crit strike chance for spells because we're going to 100% crit with this build. +1 level of all fire skill gems, which I've got on both my wands. And then any added fire damage to spells. My other one's very similar, but not quite, which is just a balancing act between trying to do this cheaply. And this build is dirt bloody cheap. Chest piece, Soul Mantle, really simple. 6 link is like 40 to 60 chaos at the moment, because like I said, nobody's really playing a spell totem style totem build at the moment. Same with my Consecrated Path totems. They're crazy powerful, but no one's playing them, which is surprising to me. But everyone's playing EA, so is what it is. Amulet, literally, so the anoint on the amulet is running Totemic Zeal, which increases again cast speed. Also increases placement speed of totems, so we don't need to focus on doing anything with that. Also more flat cast speed on the amulet itself. We've got some life, +1 all fire skills, and a bit of resistance, and all attributes to buff that up too. So really cheap. I think I paid like 60 chaos for this amulet, so dirt cheap. Rings, 2 amethyst rings, both magic, both with health rolls, and any other stats that I need to prop up any sort of balancing points in the build. Gloves, I'm still working on the implicits. Commandment of Force is not required. You could put anything. Reflection, I would actually put Reflection on this build. Outside of that, it does have ES. It could be a better set of gloves, but it sort of is what it is. If I could get ones with spell damage with evasion, that would be my ideal set of gloves. And even added fire damage or something like that. Unnerve's really good to have on this build because Unnerve has a significant impact on damage. So yeah, gloves pretty straightforward. Belt, Coward's Legacy, straightforward belt. These are dirt cheap this league, so no need to worry too much about not being able to acquire one. About 40 chaos, 40 to 60 chaos, so pretty cheap. And what this does is it gives you count as on low life while you're cursed with vulnerability, and it self curses you with permanent vulnerability, which you can see on the screen here. And because we're curse immune because of our Viridi's Veil, that means we both get 17% damage buff, and we can also run Pain Attunement, which gives us 30% more spell damage when we're on low life because we're technically on low life. And that's pretty much that mechanic, very simple. And then Legacy of Fury, and basically all enemies nearby are scorched. I've run these boots on every single fire build this league because they are so good. And basically acts as like a somewhat explodey chest sort of thing. Now the other thing with this too is you want to get the 120% crit chance roll if you've not crit on an enemy before, because technically totems don't count as you, so you never crit. But you get global crit from the boots, so you permanently have 120% extra crit chance, which is how we get up to just shy of 100% crit, 99.6 crit per the tree that I've got in the POB. Flask setup, I do have Blood of the Karui. I'm going to move this off because I don't think it's that good. Quicksilver flasks, all my flasks have cast when flask reaches full, so I don't have to worry about casting them. I can just blast away and keep running through the map. Diamond Flask, obviously with increased cast speed, that's a really good modifier. Dying Sun just drops off Shaper, honestly, just buffs your damage up so significantly for just a flask socket, or flask slot. And then I'm running a Cinder Swallow with the recover 2% of life as well on kill, and this is basically just to increase my recovery of life, but also to increase my overall burn damage. Also reduces the amount of reflected damage as well, but I'm not sure if this applies to the totems or me, but it's still a good feature because reflect damage can really mess up totems despite you not having to take any reflect damage. That's it for the gearing. Really straightforward sort of gearing on this build. Okay, gem setups. So in the helm, I've got a portal. I had a spare socket. You can do whatever you want with it. You don't need to use portal. I put Grace because I get +2 from the Viridi's Veil. Flesh and Stone, Vitality. In my first one, Infernal Cry, Urgent Orders. The reason why I'm running Urgent Orders is because I've got no Warcry cooldown. It takes too long to cast. If I was to take that out, I wouldn't be able to cast it that quickly. So one of the weird odd occasions where Urgent Orders is actually worth playing, it just means it takes a little longer to cool down, which is fine. And then I've also got Flame Dash, so obviously I can just Flame Dash around. Then in my other one, I do have Steel Skin, Clarity, and Custom Damage Taken. Now I'm probably going to change this to a Mortal Call, because I think a Mortal Call is better, but I'll test that out and see how I go. In my chest piece, I have a level 3 in Power because it's cheap. If you've got a level 4, even better. That'll boost your damage up another 100k. If I have a look at the skills, let's just tell the truth on that one. Yeah, about 100k. 70 to 100k increase in deeps having a level 4, so that's significant. Awaken Fire Penetration, it's like 7 chaos, dirt cheap, worth the currency. Divergent Multiple Totems, this is because it gives you increased damage as opposed to increased placement speed, which is an advantage for this particular totem because this usually cuts your damage, so you only lose 15% instead of 25%. Increased critical strike support, increased critical strike damage because this is a max crit build and we want to maximize crit damage and chunk everything. And then Fireball, level 21 Fireball. Now I don't have like Divergent Fireball or anything like that because you don't really need that. But also because of all the modifiers, mine's at level 21 converted level 26. If I get a better Empower, then that goes to level 27, and if I could get +2 on anything, I could technically get to level 30, and if it hit level 30, it would get to like 819k per Fireball, which would be crazy. Like, literally, you'd be doing like 30 million DPS, 28 million DPS with fireball totems, which isn't necessarily impossible. So yeah. Anyway, and then in my in my gloves, phase run. So I've mapped phase run to my move button, so I always have phase run up. Sniper's mark, and also mark on hit support. So basically that means when my totems hit a unique enemy, it procs sniper's mark without me having to physically apply it. And that basically means I also generate health flasks a lot quicker in boss fights and things like that, so I can sustain that. Now that's my understanding. I believe it's working, but I'm sure someone will tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, and maybe it's just a placebo effect in my head. Who knows? Anyway, and then self-cast flammability just for that extra curse damage. And then in the boots, Ice Golem. The reason why I'm running Ice Golem is that gets me just about up to my 100% mark on my crit. So just a good to have. I also have Meat Shield because I use it to sort of proc enemies that get close to me away from me. So Ice Golem actually becomes my little taunt bro. And then Defiance Banner and Precision, level 21 Precision. And that gets my crit up to the 100% mark. So, you know, we get up to maximum crit, which is why we can put 100% crit in the description on the video. It's actually 99.6, but I'll take it as 100. Someone will get up me about the 0.4% crit that I don't have that gets it off 100, but you know what? I don't care. That's pretty much it for the gem setups. Really basic setup. And all this will be in the POB in the description as well, so you'll be able to have a play with it and see how you go. Okay, so tree. This one took a little bit of tweaking to get it right, and this isn't the final tree, and in fact what I'll actually do is I'll talk to the final tree that I have in here. So basically this is a level 91 tree, and we've had to make some compromises in areas, but this gets you up to about 536k per fireball projectile, and also the explosion hits for 536k, and it does like multiple overlapping explosions as well. So in the setup itself, this is Cyrus damage. We're in Sand Stance actually. Yeah, that doesn't really do much. So if we have 2 frenzy charges, and the way that we can do that is divine it onto the rings. Let's not divine it, craft it onto the rings. We can run frenzy charges, but you know, we can take that off. We get to 481,000 per projectile, which is pretty good. We have power charges and endurance charges permanently up as well. We do have onslaught because we get onslaught from one of our cluster jewels, which I'll explain very shortly. We do have actually 5 totems, which is even better. And have a summon a totem recently. Yes, you're always going to be doing that. Yes, we do have leech on our energy shield, and I'll explain where. And we easily spend 200 mana. We actually probably spend closer to like 500 mana because we have so much mana. We don't want to have crit recently because we don't crit the totems crit. At least that's my understanding. We don't have that ticked on, but you know, someone can tell me if I'm wrong. And then basically, yeah, there's nothing else crazy here. Meat shields on. Bloody, every time I record, my nose. Every time. So projectile travel distance doesn't really matter about this, won't make any difference whatsoever. As we can see there, no difference. Enemy is moving, no difference. Burning, no difference. Ignite is important, and we do ignite because our fireball is 25% chance. So you're inevitably going to ignite with the amount of fireballs that we fire out. We do have unnerve because this is the implicit on the gloves, so that's a 100% yes. And we do have enemies covered in ash because we do run Infernal Cry. So that gives us an extra damage boost of about 40k as well. So that's a really important one to keep in mind. We don't have any of the other stuff, but if we could get shock on, shock doesn't do anything. Enemies are technically blinded to a degree, but again, Jesus, every time I record, everything just gets itchy. Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much it for the configuration. So that's how you know this isn't bullshit. Like this is a working build. Like this actually works, which is good. Okay, so tree, as far as the setup here. So pretty much we're skipping all the nodes in here. We're going to focus on taking the discipline and training and light of divinity and holy dominion. Then we'll move up. We'll grab the quick recovery. We really struggle to get health on this build, right? Because we're running evasion, we're not worried about health. We have like close to 1,000 ES as well. So, you know, we got enough to keep alive, and most of these sorts of builds that do high octane damage don't necessarily have a lot of life built into them for that reason. So then we come across, we get Annihilation. This increases our crit. We want to get Practiced Application and also Heart and Soul. Then come down and grab Nimbleness and Pain Attunement. Now you can pick up these sockets if you want, you don't need to in this iteration. Then we come up, we grab Shamanic Dominion, and we also want the Totem Mastery to increase crit as well. And then we'll pick up the Cruel Prep health nodes and the Deep Thoughts. This gives us a shitload more regeneration. If you need a Dex node, grab the Agility node on the way through the path. And yeah, that'll get you the Dex you need to keep the build ticking. Then we come up, now I'll talk about these clusters last because they're always the last thing we sort of do. Then we come in, we pick up Arcane Potency. We also want 25% extra crit, strike multi against unique enemies, so we can boss a lot more efficiently. Ancestral Bond, obviously, it's a totem build, so that's needed. Purity of Flesh, we do, because I do reserve auras in this totem build, I am running Sovereignty, and I am running 15% mana reservation efficiency. Not every totem build does this. Most don't, but mine I do, and I'm sort of not running the same totem build as everybody else, so it works for me. Anyway, then down to Mana Mastery, so Clarity is 100% mana reservation efficiency. This is obviously to prop up our regen, and also Arcane Capacitor, because we are running Arcane Surge. And then we come down, we've just got a standard like crit, multi, and health, whatever, jewel in here. Then we come down and we pick down these sockets here. So in this cluster here, this is actually not the cluster that you would get first. The one you want first would be this. So I have Essence Rush, which gives us Energy Shield Leech, which gives us the leech damage. Arcane Adept, this gives us Arcane Surge after channeling for 1 second, but we don't channel, so we don't need to worry about that. What we do get, actually, this is not the right node for this. This is actually hindering this build. So that's an efficiency point that I can change. Then we have Practice Caster, so this is just more cast speed and spell damage. Then we come into the nodes. So we do want Sleepless Sentries. This gives us Onslaught. Pardon me. And Ancestral Inspiration. This gives us constant Arcane Surge once we cast the totem, and it gives us flat totem damage. Really good node. This was the most expensive cluster jewel in the game. In this build, which cost me about 2x. And then we've just got another, you know, ornamental Crimson Jewel in this build, so you can get the same jewel. They're dirt cheap. Then we have Snaring Spirits. This hinders enemies when we summon a totem. And then Ancestral Echo, and this gives us increased placement speed and cast speed if we summon a totem recently, so that increases our cast speed again. And then we just have another one of these Fulgurant Ornamental Jewels to increase our crit multi again, and life. So then we come back down and we go to the second set of clusters, and realistically you could get another one of these large cluster jewels in. And this has Smoking Remains, Disorientating Display, so it does Blind on Hit, and Master of Fire, which all enemies have fire exposure near you, so this increases damage significantly. And then we go into Eye to Eye and Repeater nodes, which are like 60 chaos each. And then we obviously have Self-Flagellation, and we have our Rain of Splinters, which increases our projectiles. And again, another Repeater and Eye to Eye. This increases projectile damage. And that's pretty much it for the tree. As far as the ascendancies go, just pull this over here. So the sequence is Pursuit of Faith first, then you're going to get Ritual Awakening, then we're going to get Divine Guidance. This is going to give you the mana to sustain everything, and then finally Conviction of Power. Now, if you could get a Forbidden Flesh or a Forbidden Flame Jewel that did you justice, then by all means, that's another option as well. And potentially you could pick up, you know, Inevitable Judgment. If you could get that on this build, that would be crazy powerful. Mainly because you're doing 100% crit and it would ignore all resistances, so you basically just annihilate enemies. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And that's what you can see on the screen. This is almost close. I've just got the last cluster to fix up down here, which means I have to strip off these nodes and these nodes. But yeah, I'll put the tree as it is right now, and I'll also put the final tree that I've got in POB for consideration. But that's pretty much the tree. Alright, so I hope this video sort of guides you on the path to figuring out how to play these spell totems. Now, if you didn't want to run Fireball, you could pretty much switch out any skill for any combination in this build. That's the beauty of it. Like if you want to play Spark Totems, just go Lightning Affinity. If you wanted to play Freezing Pulse, you switch to Freezing Pulse. You'll do about the same damage, if not more, depending on the type of skill. Arc Totems don't really work too well, funnily enough, but maybe it's just the way that I looked at it and spec'd it and played with it. Reap does not work. The main problem that I had with Reap was the health factor. You just got to regen way too much health, and the Hierophant's not built for it. Some people said, why don't you run Chieftain? Chieftain's not going to achieve the damage that you need, and you have to fire convert it, and it's a bit of a waste of time. But anyway, if this video is cool and you want to try this build, like and sub. Also, I'll be continuing this one on and getting it to endpoint like its series rule. I have a few more videos in the pipeline. This is the first of a few videos that are coming out, but I just need time to make the videos, so and I'm a little lazy, so yeah, they'll be out in the next few days. Anyway, until next time, have a good one, and bye.